So Thailand's got a new prime minister, and she's making headlines around the world.
Definitely a lot of attention on Paetongtarn Shinawatra right now, or Ung Ing, as she's often called.
Ung Ing, yeah, it's kind of catchy, isn't it? And at just 37, she's the youngest person to ever lead the country. Plus, only the second woman to hold the office.
It's historic, no doubt, but it's more than just her age or gender that has people talking.
Right, because to really understand what's going on here, we have to talk about the Shinawatra family name.
Exactly. It's a name that carries a lot of weight in Thai politics. You could even say it's a bit of a political dynasty over there.
Okay, so let's break that down for our listeners. What's the story with the Shinawatras, and why is their legacy so important to understanding, well, everything that's happening in Thailand right now?
Well, you see, both Paetongtarn's father, Thaksin Shinawatra, and her aunt, Yingluck Shinawatra, they both served as prime ministers.
And they were both incredibly popular, right? I remember reading about massive rallies, devoted followers.
Hugely popular, especially in Thailand's rural heartland. They really pushed populist policies that resonated with everyday Thais.
But there's always a but in these stories, isn't there?
There is. Both Thaksin and Yingluck were ousted from power. Thaksin by a military coup back in 2006, and then Yingluck through a court ruling in 2014.
So Paetongtarn's inheritance here, it's this legacy of really deep connection with the Thai people, but also this, well, complicated history with the traditional power structure, the military, the courts.
Absolutely, and that's the real crux of it. She's stepping onto a political stage that's, let's say, known for its dramatic twists and turns. And I'm not talking ancient history here. I mean, we saw it just a few weeks ago.
Yeah, it's easy to forget that Paetongtarn's predecessor, Sretha Thavisin, also from the Pheu Thai Party, that's her party. By the way, he was just dismissed by the Constitutional Court in August. That's what paved the way for her to take over.
And to make things even more interesting, her coalition government includes parties that are aligned with the very military that ousted her own father.
You know, you can't help but wonder what those family dinners must be like. I bet there are some long silences.
It's certainly raised eyebrows, and there's been a fair bit of criticism from those who see it as, well, a betrayal of her party's promises of reform.
It seems like she's walking a tightrope, trying to balance her family legacy with the realities of power in Thailand.
It's a delicate dance for sure, and it's only the first act.
And it's not just the political tightrope she's walking, is it?
Oh, absolutely not. We can't forget about the economic challenges facing Thailand right now. They're substantial.
And those economic challenges are really where one of Paetongtarn's key election promises comes in, right? The 10,000 baht digital wallet scheme.
Exactly. And it's a policy that's caused quite a stir, to say the least. A lot of opinions flying around about this one.
For those who might not be familiar with the Thai baht, we're talking roughly $280 per person. Just to put that in perspective. And we're talking about potentially injecting something like $14 billion into the Thai economy.
Yeah.
It's a massive undertaking.
Oh, it's ambitious, no doubt. You've seen the headlines, I'm sure. Economists are weighing in from all sides on this one.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's easy to see both sides of it, right?
Yeah.
On the one hand, you've got to look at the economic reality in Thailand right now. High household debt, exports are down, tourism's still trying to recover from the pandemic. You could see how a cash infusion like that, well, it could be just the thing to jumpstart things.
Right. The thinking is that it'll boost consumer spending, get people spending money within Thailand, and really stimulate that domestic demand.
But I imagine the big question is, will it last? Is it a long-term solution or just a quick shot in the arm?
That's what the critics are saying. Even some folks within the Bank of Thailand have expressed concern, worried about inflation, whether it addresses the real underlying structural issues.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's a gamble, that's for sure. You spend that much money, you better hope it works.
And on top of that, they're worried about the strain on government finances. Thailand already has a fair amount of debt, and this isn't exactly cheap.
But they did tweak the plan from the original idea, didn't they?
Right.
It wasn't always going to be a direct cash transfer, right?
Right. Initially, it was all about this digital wallet system. But they've shifted gears, at least for this first phase. It seems they're trying to, well, maybe silence some of those critics, address those concerns we were just talking about.
Okay, so walk us through it. What's the plan now?
So instead of that universal digital wallet, they're doing direct cash transfers to bank accounts, at least to start. And the first round is targeting about 14.5 million people, focusing on the most vulnerable, folks on welfare, people with disabilities. It seems like they're trying to make it a bit more targeted, trying to get the money to those who need it most.
And maybe hoping that by targeting it, they can avoid some of those inflationary risks everyone's been talking about.
Exactly. It's definitely a more cautious approach, at least for now.
It'll be interesting to see if it stays that way, though, won't it? I mean, do they expand it further down the line, risk upsetting those who are worried about the budget in the first place? Or do they focus on other reforms, maybe disappoint those who saw that 10,000 baht promise as a sign of, a bolder approach?
It's a tough spot, no doubt. Whatever they choose, it'll have huge implications, not just for Thailand's economy, but for Paetongtarn's political future as well. This could really make or break things for her.
It's one thing to inherit a legacy, but it's another thing entirely to build on it, to navigate these incredibly complex issues and try to chart a new course for a country.
It's a story that's just beginning to unfold, and it's got all the elements of a real page-turner, doesn't it?
It really does. It's a lot to take in, I mean, Paetongtarn Shinawatra, she's making a huge gamble here. Not just with this cash handout, but with, well, everything, really.
Oh, absolutely. It's a pivotal moment, no question. You have this young leader stepping into some pretty big shoes, carrying all that family history, and at the same time trying to forge her own path. It's a fascinating dynamic.
And she's got all those pressures on her. The economy, the political divisions, not to mention the legacy of her own family. It makes you wonder, can she break the cycle? Can she succeed where her father and her aunt weren't able to?
It's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Thailand has seen this before. Populist leaders, policies aimed at lifting up the masses, followed by, well, you know the story, economic instability, political turmoil. It's a pattern that's hard to ignore.
Especially with those deep divisions in Thai society, urban versus rural, the whole Shinawatra brand of populism versus the more traditional power structures. It's a lot to balance.
No doubt about it. And it's what makes Paetongtarn's leadership so fascinating to watch. Will she be able to bridge those divides, or will she fall back on those familiar patterns? Remember, she's leading a coalition that includes parties aligned with the military. Will those compromises help her achieve stability, or will they alienate her base? Will it be seen as pragmatic or a betrayal of what your family stood for?
It's interesting, isn't it? Because for so many people, especially in rural Thailand, the Shinawatra name represents hope. They were champions of the people, fighting for a more equitable Thailand.
Right, and that's what makes her balancing act so precarious. It's not just about managing an economy or navigating a political minefield. She's grappling with the hopes and anxieties of an entire nation, a nation that's been through a lot, but still, I think, deeply yearns for a brighter future.
It's a side of Thailand we don't often hear about, We talk about the beaches, the food, the culture. But beneath the surface, there's this incredible complexity, this constant tension between tradition and change, progress, and the past.
And Paetongtarn Shinawatra, she's right at the heart of it. Whether she ushers in a new era of stability and prosperity, or Thailand falls back into those familiar patterns, well, that's a story only time can tell. But one thing's for sure, it's a story that will keep us all on the edge of our seats for a long time to come. So as you continue to follow this story, here's something to consider. Do Paetongtarn's rise and this whole controversial cash handout program, do they represent a real break from the past? Or are we just seeing a new chapter in the same old story? Something to think about, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. A lot to unpack there, a lot more to come, I suspect. We'll be keeping a close eye on things. Until next time, thanks for joining us on The Deep Dive. Keep exploring, keep asking questions, and we'll see you again soon.